I found my Apache neighbor's lost dog and she asked, "What reward do you want? A kiss, perhaps?" The neighborhood was the kind of place where days passed quietly and most people minded their own business. The houses were close enough to see each other's front doors, but not close enough for real friendships. People waved politely, exchanged short greetings, and then returned to their own lives. The main character had lived there for several years, yet he barely knew the names of most neighbors. He was used to silence, routine, and evenings spent alone after work. That evening felt no different at first. He returned home tired, his mind full of unfinished tasks and thoughts he never shared with anyone. As he parked his car and stepped out, the street seemed calm. The sun was going down, painting the sky in soft orange and purple colors. A cool breeze moved through the trees, and for a moment everything felt peaceful. As he walked toward his house, he noticed something unusual near the sidewalk. At first, he thought it was a shadow or a pile of leaves, but then it moved. A medium-sized dog stood near the road, looking lost and unsure. Its fur was dusty, and its eyes moved quickly from side to side, as if it didn't know where to go. He stopped walking and watched from a distance. The dog didn't bark or run. It just stood there, tail low, ears alert. Cars passed by, and each time one came close, the dog stepped back nervously. Something about the sight made his chest feel tight. He had never owned a dog, but he knew this one didn't belong on the street alone. Slowly he walked closer, careful not to scare it. He spoke softly, using a calm voice without thinking about the words. The dog looked at him, uncertain but not aggressive. After a few seconds, it took a small step toward him, then another. When he reached out his hand, the dog sniffed it and relaxed slightly. He noticed a collar around its neck. It looked worn but strong, with a small tag attached. He gently held the collar and tried to read the name, but the writing was faded. Still, he recognized the style. He had seen a similar dog before, usually walking beside the Apache woman who lived 2 houses down. She rarely spoke to anyone, but everyone knew she cared deeply for her dog. Realizing the dog must be hers, he felt a sense of responsibility. It was getting dark, and leaving the dog outside was not an option. He checked the street, hoping to see the owner nearby, but there was no one. Maybe she was at work. Maybe she was already searching somewhere else. He decided to take the dog inside for the night. It wasn't an easy decision. He worried about whether the dog would feel safe in a stranger's home, but the idea of leaving it outside felt worse. He slowly led the dog into his house, offering it water and a small piece of food he had in the kitchen. Inside, the dog stayed close to the door at first, unsure of its surroundings. He didn't force it to move. He sat on the floor a few feet away, giving the dog space. After a while, the dog relaxed and lay down, its breathing slow and steady. Watching it, he felt a strange sense of calm he hadn't felt in a long time. As the night went on, he thought about the neighbor who owned the dog. He had noticed her before but never spoken to her. She always carried herself with quiet strength. There was pride in the way she walked, in how she treated others with polite distance. People said she valued her heritage deeply and didn't trust easily. He respected that, even from afar. He wondered how she must be feeling at that moment, realizing her dog was missing. The thought made him uneasy. He checked his phone to see if anyone had posted about a lost dog in the neighborhood group, but there was nothing yet. It was still early, he told himself. She would probably start looking soon. That night, he didn't sleep well. He kept waking up to check on the dog, making sure it was still calm and safe. Each time, the dog looked back at him with tired eyes, as if understanding he meant no harm. In those quiet moments, he realized how lonely his house had felt before. The presence of another living being changed the space in a way he hadn't expected. Early in the morning, sunlight filled the room. The dog stood up and stretched, then walked toward him slowly. It gently rested its head against his leg, a small gesture that surprised him. He smiled for the first time in days. He took the dog outside, hoping the owner might be searching nearby. The neighborhood was waking up. Birds chirped, doors opened, and cars started. As they walked down the sidewalk, he felt eyes on them. A few neighbors looked curious but said nothing. Then he saw her. She stood near the end of the street, her posture tense, her eyes scanning every direction. There was worry written clearly on her face. When her eyes landed on the dog, everything changed. Her shoulders relaxed and her steps quickened. She called the dog's name softly, and the dog immediately pulled toward her, tail wagging. The reunion was emotional but quiet. She knelt down, holding the dog close, whispering words only it could hear. He stood there awkwardly, unsure whether to speak. For a moment he considered walking away, but she looked up at him. Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them. Gratitude, relief, curiosity. She stood and thanked him sincerely. Her voice was calm but full of feeling. She explained that the dog had slipped out when a gate was left open. She had searched all night, fearing the worst. Hearing this made him realize how close the situation had been to turning into something tragic. They spoke for a few minutes, longer than he had spoken to any neighbor in years. Their conversation was simple, but it felt meaningful. She asked where he lived, how he found the dog, and how the night had gone. He answered honestly, without trying to impress her. Then she smiled just slightly and asked what reward he wanted for bringing her dog home safe. The question caught him off guard. He laughed nervously, thinking she was joking. She tilted her head and added, half teasing, "A kiss, perhaps." The words hung in the air, light but unexpected. He didn't know how to respond. Before he could say anything, she laughed softly, making it clear she didn't mean to make him uncomfortable. Still, the moment stayed with him. As they went their separate ways, he felt something shift inside him. What started as a simple act of kindness had opened a door he didn't know existed. He returned to his house, the silence no longer feeling the same. The memory of her smile and the warmth of that brief connection stayed with him long after the street returned to its usual quiet. The story of the lost dog had just begun, and neither of them knew how deeply it would change their lives. The next few days passed quietly, but the silence felt different now. The main character found himself thinking about his neighbor more often than he expected. Every time he stepped outside, he half hoped to see her walking her dog again. He told himself it was just curiosity, nothing more. Still, his routine felt slightly changed, as if something new had entered his life and refused to leave. On the third morning after the reunion, he finally saw her again. She was walking her dog slowly along the sidewalk, the leash loose in her hand. The dog looked healthy and calm, stopping now and then to sniff the grass. When she noticed him, she paused. For a moment, both of them seemed unsure whether to speak. Then she smiled, this time more openly than before. She greeted him by name. That surprised him. He hadn't realized she remembered it from their short conversation. He greeted her back, feeling a little nervous for no clear reason. They stood there talking about small things, the weather, the quiet street, how the dog was doing now. The conversation felt easy, not forced. She thanked him again for helping her that night. She explained how much the dog meant to her. It wasn't just a pet, she said, but family. She lived alone, and the dog had been her companion through many difficult times. Listening to her, he understood that the fear she felt when the dog was missing had gone deeper than he first imagined. He admitted that he hadn't slept well that night either. He told her how he kept checking on the dog, worried it might feel scared or confused. She looked at him with respect, not surprise. She said that kindness showed a person's true character more than big words ever could. From that day on, their meetings became more frequent. Sometimes they ran into each other by chance. Other times one of them seemed to slow down just enough to make a meeting possible. They talked while standing near their houses or walking a short distance together. The dog often walked between them, calm and content, as if it approved of the growing connection. They slowly shared parts of their lives. She spoke about her work, which demanded long hours and patience. She talked about her culture with quiet pride, explaining traditions she had grown up with and lessons passed down through her family. She didn't speak as someone trying to impress. She spoke because those things mattered to her. He listened carefully, asking questions when he didn't understand. He liked the way she spoke honestly, without hiding who she was. In return, he shared his own story, how he moved to the neighborhood for a fresh start, how work kept him busy but not fulfilled, how loneliness had slowly become normal for him. Saying these things out loud felt strange, but also freeing. One evening, she invited him to walk the dog with her around the block. It felt like a small step, but to him it meant more. As they walked, the streetlights came on and the world felt calm. She told him about growing up with strong family values and how trust, once broken, was hard for her to rebuild. He didn't ask for details. He simply listened. At one point, she joked again about the reward she had mentioned earlier. This time the words were lighter, followed by laughter. He smiled but didn't respond directly. The joke no longer made him uncomfortable, but it made him thoughtful. It wasn't about the words themselves. It was about the warmth behind them. Days turned into a week, then 2. Their conversations grew longer. They began to look forward to seeing each other. He noticed how she always checked on her dog before speaking, making sure it was comfortable. She noticed how he always gave her space, never pushing, never assuming. One afternoon, the dog seemed less energetic than usual. It walked slowly and refused to drink water. She looked worried but tried to stay calm. He offered to help, suggesting they visit the local clinic together. She hesitated for a moment, then agreed. The hours they spent waiting at the clinic brought them closer than any walk or conversation had before. Sitting side by side, sharing concern and hope, they talked more deeply. She admitted how much she feared losing the one being who never judged her. He confessed that caring for the dog, even for one night, had reminded him that he was capable of connection again. The doctor reassured them that the dog would be fine with rest and care. Relief filled the room. She thanked him quietly, her voice softer than before. In that moment, he realized her strength came not from distance, but from surviving disappointment and choosing kindness anyway. After that day, their bond felt real and grounded. There was no rush, no pressure, just understanding built slowly through shared moments. The playful question about a reward faded into the background, replaced by something more meaningful: trust. One evening, as they stood outside their homes, she told him that the night her dog went missing had changed how she saw people. She said she had expected to handle it alone, like she always did. But his help reminded her that accepting kindness didn't make her weak. He replied that finding the dog had changed him too. It reminded him that simple actions could open unexpected paths. She smiled at that, her eyes warm. They said goodnight and went inside, each carrying thoughts they didn't yet have words for. Nothing dramatic had happened. No promises were made. Yet both felt the quiet beginning of something honest. What started with a lost dog had become a bridge between two lives that had once moved in silence. And though neither of them knew where the path would lead, they were no longer walking alone. As the weeks passed, their meetings no longer felt like chance. They became part of each other's daily rhythm, natural and unforced. Mornings often began with a brief greeting as they stepped outside around the same time. Evenings sometimes ended with a slow walk down the street, the dog leading the way, stopping whenever it pleased. These moments were simple, but they carried a quiet comfort neither of them had expected. The main character noticed small details about her. He noticed how she always tied the leash carefully, how she spoke gently to the dog even when no one else was around. He noticed how she listened closely when he spoke, never interrupting, never looking distracted. For someone who once felt invisible, this attention mattered more than he could explain. She noticed things too. She noticed how he never tried to impress her, how his words were thoughtful and honest. She noticed how he laughed softly, as if he wasn't used to laughing out loud. She noticed that when he spoke about his past, there was no bitterness, only acceptance. These things made her feel safe in a way she had not felt in a long time. One afternoon, she knocked on his door unexpectedly. He opened it, surprised to see her standing there with the dog sitting calmly by her side. She explained that she had to work late and asked if he could keep an eye on the dog for a few hours. There was hesitation in her voice, as if she wasn't fully comfortable asking for help. He agreed without thinking. After she left, the house felt different again, but this time not lonely. The dog followed him from room to room, curious but calm. He talked to it softly, even though he knew it couldn't understand his words. Still, it felt good to speak, to fill the silence with sound. When she returned that evening, she thanked him warmly. She could see the dog was relaxed and happy. That seemed to ease something inside her. She stayed for a few minutes, standing near the doorway, talking about her long day. He listened, offering simple words of understanding. Before leaving, she paused and said she appreciated him more than she could easily say. From then on, trust grew quietly between them. She began sharing more about her life. She talked about her childhood, about lessons taught by elders, about the importance of respect and patience. She explained how her experiences had taught her to be careful with her heart. Not everyone who smiled meant well, she said. Trust had to be earned slowly. He understood that deeply. He told her about moments when he had trusted too easily and paid the price emotionally. He spoke about how he learned to protect himself by staying distant. Saying these things felt risky, but her calm presence made it easier. They never rushed the conversations. Sometimes they talked for a long time, sometimes they walked in silence. Both felt equally meaningful. Silence no longer felt empty, it felt shared. One evening, while they walked, the dog suddenly stopped and refused to move. It sat down stubbornly, staring at them both. She laughed softly and said the dog could sense things. He asked what she meant. She shrugged and said animals often understood emotions better than people did. That comment stayed with him. He began to wonder what the dog might sense between them. There was no clear label for it yet, but something was there. It showed itself in small ways, longer eye contact, softer voices, moments when neither wanted the walk to end. Still, there was caution. She sometimes pulled back slightly, changing the subject or ending a conversation earlier than expected. He noticed but didn't push. He respected her space, understanding that closeness could feel frightening to someone who had learned to rely only on themselves. One afternoon, he found her sitting on her front steps, looking distant. The dog lay beside her, resting its head on her foot. He asked if everything was all right. She hesitated, then nodded, saying she was just tired. He sat down beside her without asking more. After a long pause, she spoke. She said that letting people get close had never been easy for her. She had learned strength through independence, but sometimes independence felt heavy. She admitted that his presence had begun to matter more than she expected, and that scared her. He listened quietly, feeling the weight of her honesty. When she finished, he said something simple. He said he wasn't asking for anything she couldn't give. He said he was content just being there, walking beside her at whatever pace felt right. Her eyes softened at that. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she reached down and scratched the dog behind its ears, as if grounding herself. Finally, she thanked him for understanding. From that day, something shifted again. The playful joke about a reward from the past felt distant now. What mattered more was the steady presence they offered each other. The way they showed up, day after day, without expectation. There were moments of warmth that caught him off guard. A smile held a little longer. A gentle touch on the arm when she laughed. Small things, but powerful. He found himself looking forward to these moments more than he cared to admit. She found herself relaxing around him in ways she hadn't with anyone else. She shared stories she rarely told. Stories of challenges faced quietly, of choices made for survival rather than happiness. Speaking them aloud felt like releasing a weight she had carried alone. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned soft and pale, they stood near the end of the street. The dog lay at their feet, calm and peaceful. She looked at him and said that meeting him had reminded her that kindness still existed in unexpected places. He replied that finding her dog had reminded him that life could change through the smallest moments. That sometimes meaning entered quietly without asking permission. They stood there for a while, neither wanting to break the moment. There was no dramatic confession, no sudden promise. Just a shared understanding that something real was growing, slowly and honestly. As they said goodnight and went their separate ways, both felt the same quiet thought. Whatever this was, it was worth protecting, worth patience, worth trust. And as the door closed behind him, he realized that for the first time in years, he was not afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Part 4. Co-expand Crow without heading 1600 words Mayan simple. What they had built so far felt gentle and real, yet fragile, like something that could be shaken by a small mistake or an unspoken fear. Neither of them said it out loud, but both understood that getting closer also meant risking pain. One week, her routine changed. She began leaving earlier in the morning and returning late at night. Their walks became shorter, then less frequent. Some days, they didn't see each other at all. The main character told himself not to overthink it. She had responsibilities, a demanding job, and a life that did not revolve around him. Still, the sudden distance felt heavy. He missed the quiet talks. He missed the calm way she listened. He even missed the silence they shared. Without those moments, his old loneliness started to return, slow and familiar. He tried to stay busy, filling his evenings with work, but his thoughts kept drifting back to her. When they finally crossed paths again, it felt different. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her answers were short. The dog walked between them as always, but even that comfort felt thinner than before. He sensed she was holding something back. A few days later, he heard raised voices outside late in the evening. Curious and concerned, he stepped onto his porch. He saw her standing near her car, speaking firmly to a man he didn't recognize. The man looked frustrated, gesturing as he spoke. The conversation ended quickly. The man drove away, leaving her standing alone. She noticed him watching and nodded politely, but didn't come over. He wanted to ask if she was okay, but something in her posture told him to wait. That night, his thoughts kept him awake. He didn't know who the man was or what the conversation meant, but the uncertainty stirred fear he hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, he avoided her by accident or maybe on purpose. He wasn't sure. He didn't want to assume things or cross boundaries. Still, the distance between them grew, quiet but real. Several days passed like this, filled with polite greetings and careful space. It felt like walking on thin ice. Both of them sensed the shift, but neither spoke first. Then one afternoon, the dog appeared at his door alone. At first, he panicked. He looked around, expecting to see her nearby, but she wasn't there. The dog sat patiently, tail moving slowly. He checked the collar and leash, no leash. His heart tightened. Something was wrong. He took the dog inside and tried calling her phone. No answer. He left a message, keeping his voice calm even though worry filled his chest. He waited, watching the dog closely. It seemed restless, pacing the room. After nearly an hour, she arrived, breathless and pale. Relief washed over her face when she saw the dog safe inside. She apologized quickly, explaining that she had been dealing with a personal matter and hadn't realized the dog slipped out. He didn't scold her or ask questions right away. He offered water and told her to sit. She hesitated, then did. Her hands shook slightly. After a long silence, she spoke. She explained that the man he had seen was someone from her past. Someone who reminded her of a time when trust had cost her deeply. She said she had thought she was strong enough to handle it alone, but seeing him again brought back feelings she had buried for years. She admitted that getting close to someone again made her afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of being hurt, afraid of letting her guard down only to regret it. As she spoke, tears filled her eyes, though she tried to hide them. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, she waited, clearly expecting him to pull away. Instead, he spoke gently. He told her that he had noticed the distance and feared he had done something wrong. He admitted that seeing the man had confused him, but he hadn't wanted to assume anything. He said he didn't need to know every detail to understand that her past still affected her. He told her something he hadn't planned to say. He said that caring for her, even quietly, had become important to him. But he also said he respected her need for space and honesty more than anything else. She looked at him then, really looked at him. The tension in her shoulders slowly eased. She said she wasn't used to being met with patience. She was used to having to explain herself or defend her choices. They sat there for a long time, the dog lying peacefully between them. No solutions were offered, no promises made, just understanding. After that day, things didn't return to how they were before. They became something steadier, deeper. Their walks resumed, but now they talked with more honesty. She no longer pretended to be unaffected. He no longer hid how much her presence mattered. There were still moments of hesitation, still days when she pulled back slightly. But now she explained when she needed space, and he learned not to take it as rejection. One evening, as they walked under a sky full of quiet stars, she stopped suddenly. She turned to him and said that trusting him felt different, safer. She said she didn't know where things were going, but she knew she didn't want to lose what they had. He told her he felt the same. He wasn't asking for certainty, just honesty and time. She nodded, visibly relieved. As they continued walking, the dog moved happily ahead, unaware of the weight of the moment. The street felt calm again, like it had on the first night he found the lost dog. That night, as he returned home, he felt something settle inside him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they had faced this one together, and that made all the difference. The bond between them was no longer just built on kindness. It was built on truth, patience, and the quiet courage to stay. Life slowly found its balance again, but this time it felt richer and more meaningful. The days no longer passed without purpose. Each morning carried a sense of quiet hope, and each evening held the comfort of knowing someone nearby truly cared. Nothing dramatic changed on the surface, yet everything felt different inside. Their connection grew stronger through small, steady moments. They didn't rush into anything or make promises they weren't ready to keep. Instead, they chose consistency. They showed up for each other in simple ways, shared walks, thoughtful conversations, and silent understanding. Trust, once fragile, now felt carefully protected by both of them. The dog remained at the center of their shared routine. It became a symbol of how they had met and why they had stayed connected. Watching the dog walk confidently beside them reminded them both of how far they had come since that first night of fear and uncertainty. She began opening up more about her dreams, not just her past. She talked about things she wanted to do someday, traveling to meaningful places, creating a life that felt peaceful rather than guarded. Speaking these hopes aloud felt like a quiet act of courage. He listened, encouraging her without pressure. He also began to change. He started reaching out more, both to her and to others. The loneliness he once accepted as normal no longer felt necessary. He rediscovered parts of himself he thought were gone, his ability to care deeply, to hope, to imagine a future shaped by connection rather than isolation. One evening she invited him over for a simple meal. It wasn't planned far in advance, just a spontaneous gesture. The atmosphere was relaxed. They talked, laughed, and shared stories that had nothing to do with pain or fear. It felt easy, natural, and real. At one point, the dog rested at their feet, calm and content. She looked at the scene and smiled softly. She said that night her dog went missing had been one of the scariest moments of her life, but also one of the most meaningful. If the dog hadn't wandered off, she might never have learned that she didn't have to face everything alone. He told her that finding the dog had changed him too. It reminded him that kindness could lead to unexpected connections, and that sometimes the smallest actions carried the greatest impact. As time passed, they became more comfortable expressing what they meant to each other, not through grand gestures but through honesty. She told him that his patience made her feel safe. He told her that her strength inspired him to be more open. One quiet afternoon, as they walked the familiar path down the street, she stopped and turned to him. Her expression was serious but calm. She thanked him again, not just for finding her dog, but for staying present even when things felt uncertain. She said she trusted him, and that trust was not something she gave easily. He felt deeply moved by her words. He replied that he never expected a reward for doing what felt right. He said the real reward had been finding someone who understood the value of patience and kindness as much as he did. She smiled at that, remembering the playful question she once asked. Gently, she said that if he ever wanted that reward she joked about long ago, he could have it now. He laughed softly, surprised but touched. He told her that what they had built meant more to him than any playful promise. Still, as they stood there, she leaned in and gave him a gentle, respectful kiss on the cheek. It was brief, but full of meaning. The moment felt complete, not rushed or overwhelming, just right. From that day on, they continued walking forward together. Life still had challenges, but they faced them side by side. The neighborhood no longer felt like a place of quiet distance, but a place where connection had quietly taken root. Evenings often ended with the three of them walking under the soft glow of streetlights. The dog moved happily ahead, unaware of the role it had played in bringing two guarded hearts together. The story didn't end with dramatic declarations or sudden changes. It ended with something stronger: mutual respect, steady companionship, and the understanding that love could grow from the simplest act of kindness. What began with a lost dog became a reminder that sometimes life's most meaningful connections arrive when you least expect them, asking for nothing more than patience, honesty, and an open heart.